Get ready to hear a shocking and moving story about the relationship between a father and a daughter. An experience that reveals how boundaries can become blurred and feelings can become complicated. The story I'm about to share with you is not an easy one to tell. Yeah, an ordinary story, and it's certainly not something any of us would want to experience. It's a story about family, complicated relationships, and fragile boundaries. Sometimes the things we take for granted become ambiguous and confusing. This is the story of me and my daughter, Emily. It was a quiet afternoon, the sun setting behind the tall buildings, casting an orange glow over our quiet neighborhood. The soft aroma of home-cooked food wafted through the air, mingling with the comforting sounds of the neighborhood. As I stood in the kitchen preparing dinner, I could hear the soft hum of the radio in the background. My daughter Emily had just returned from a weekend away at college, and the energy in the house was filled with a familiar calm. The peace that emanated from the space was a result of our long time together and shared memories. Emily had grown up so quickly, it seemed like only yesterday. She was the little girl who followed me around the house, asking 1,000 questions about life. Now, at 21, she was no longer that innocent child, but a confident and sometimes inadvertently aloof young woman. The dynamic between us had changed as she grew into an adult, something I was still getting used to. When I finally called Emily from the living room to join me for dinner, I noticed something different in her eyes, intense in a way that made me stop for a moment. That late afternoon, the orange glow of the sun reflected on the windows of our house, creating a warm and familiar atmosphere. Emily had returned from college, bringing with her the contagious energy of her youth. As we sat at the table for dinner, I could see how much more mature and independent she seemed, in contrast to the curious girl who had accompanied me around the house years ago. Amidst her lively stories about her week at college, Emily shared new dreams and challenges for the future. The conversation flowed naturally between us, full of laughter and complicity. As the evening wore on, I realized how far that scene was from the peaceful days when we were just father and daughter, enjoying the simplicity of home. As the evening wore on, the cozy atmosphere of the living room highlighted the contrast between past and present. As the film filled the space with its images and sounds, I found myself watching Emily intently, as if searching for answers in her features transformed by age. Each expression, each gesture of hers seemed to contain a hidden meaning that I could not decipher. The proximity between us on the couch was not only physical, but symbolic of a subtle and disturbing change in our father-daughter relationship. The silent tension between our gazes denoted a latent discomfort, an echo of the emotional barriers that now seemed difficult to overcome. Enveloped by the darkness of the room and the narrative of the film, both immersed in our disturbing thoughts, we were on the edge of an emotional abyss that we were reluctant to acknowledge the existence. As the plot of the film unfolded before us, a tense silence seemed to hang in the air, highlighting the emotional distance we were beginning to feel. Each scene projected on the screen echoed the unspoken discomfort that was growing between father and daughter at that moment. As I struggled to tear my gaze away from Emily, the acute awareness of her presence beside me seemed to fill every inch of the space between us. Her young, determined features denoted a new phase of life, far removed from the innocence of childhood, yet still inexplicably linked to the bonds of family we shared. The soft light from the television illuminated her face, revealing a thoughtful, introspective expression that made me question the meaning behind each restrained smile and each calculated gesture. In that single moment, enveloped in the dim light of the room, we were just two strangers familiar with each other's presence, but separated by an unbridgeable emotional chasm. As the minutes slowly ticked by, I became aware of a subtle movement beside me. The space between us suddenly shrank, bringing me into unexpected proximity. His intense gaze met mine, a connection charged with electricity in the air. Every breath seemed deeper, every heartbeat louder than ever before. The casual touch of his hand on mine sent a shiver down my spine, as if an invisible boundary had been crossed. An electric current of conflicting feelings washed over me, as the silence of the room echoed the force of this simple interaction. It was as if time had stopped in that fleeting moment, flooding us with a palpable tension that neither of us knew how to deal with. As the night wore on, I found myself immersed in a mixture of perplexity and apprehension at the intensity of the feelings that were beginning to overflow amid the silences that stretched between us. Every action, every look, seemed to carry with it an overwhelming emotional charge, blurring the already tenuous boundaries between father and daughter. The feeling of inadequacy in the face of this unusual moment grew exponentially, as if I were adrift in a sea of unknown and turbulent emotions. My mind cried out for clarity amid the nebulousness of the situation, but my heart seemed to whisper forbidden desires that I wanted to repress. It was a moral and emotional dilemma that slowly involved me in a web of uncertainty and discomfort, revealing the unexpected complexities that inhabited the most intimate corners of this deeply shaken relationship. My mind was a jumble of emotions as I tried to process the intensity of the moment. The touch of Emily's hand on mine was like a wake-up call, jolting me to a disturbing reality. I knew we needed to keep our distance, but the words felt heavier than ever in the air between us. Each silence carried the weight of unspoken emotions and boundaries we had refused to cross. The room around us seemed to contract as I struggled to find a way to restore normalcy, even as I knew deep down that something fundamental had changed forever in our relationship. The moment Emily's words echoed through the room seemed to freeze time around us. Her gaze carried an intensity that could not be ignored, as if each sentence she spoke was loaded with a deep and disturbing meaning. As she looked at me with such sincerity, her words pierced my mind like arrows, touching a sensitive spot that I would have preferred to keep dormant. The declaration that I was more than her father unleashed a storm of conflicting emotions within me, a battle between parental duty and the unpredictable complexity of human. As I tried to process the depth of her words and the whirlwind of thoughts that were stirring in my mind, an uncomfortable truth began to emerge: the fine line between a father's unconditional love and the fragile boundaries of affection was about to disappear completely. The feeling of love, present in all family relationships, must be complemented by a deep understanding of mutual respect and healthy boundaries. As parents, it is our responsibility to protect and guide our children with affection and security, always maintaining the necessary distance to ensure the healthy emotional growth of each individual. The special connection between parents and children must be cultivated with delicacy, ensuring that complex feelings and misinterpretations do not exceed the limits of mutual respect. It is essential to recognize that the balance between love and respect is essential to preserve the integrity of family relationships, preventing small mistakes from turning into irreparable separations. During the tumultuous journey of these events, I learned that the boundaries between parental love and mixed feelings can be delicate and volatile. Amidst the whirlwind of emotions and moral dilemmas, it becomes clear that the fine line between protecting and understanding can become blurred. Every gesture, every word exchanged between father and daughter carries with it a distinct emotional weight, reminding us of the fragility of family bonds. The complexity of human relationships highlights the importance of maintaining clarity about our roles and boundaries to protect not only the bond between parents and children, but also the integrity of each individual involved. It could be said that this story serves as a reminder of the nuances present in family relationships and the need to nurture these connections with wisdom, mutual respect, and a keen awareness of established emotional boundaries. Always be sensible, know right from wrong, and know when to stop before things get out of hand. Thank you for following my story. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this.